hearing from the president on Truth Social, vowing to significantly escalate tariffs against China due to the retaliation that Beijing is vowing to impose later this week. So just a reminder of the timeline here. On Wednesday, the country-specific tariffs as high as 54% against China are set to kick in. On Thursday is when China's 34% retaliatory tariff is set to take effect. The president is saying now that if that retaliation takes effect, that he would go forward and impose an additional 50% tariff on China, also effective on Thursday. So if we add those up, it was 20% fentanyl tariffs, 34% so-called reciprocal tariffs, now an additional 50% on China if they move forward with their retaliation, over 100% then for this term alone that the president would be imposing in tariffs against imports from China. He also says that all talks with China concerning their requested meetings with the U.S. will be terminated. So not willing to negotiate at this point. He says that he warned countries not to retaliate against these tariffs, and because China is taking these significant steps towards retaliation, that he would up the ante even further, as he did vow to do. It was written right into the executive order that he would escalate things even further if he needed to. Now saying additional tariffs on China of 50% effective on Thursday. Carl?
Listen, a lot of people are talking about the tariffs and saying how it's going to increase the prices on things. And I'm not naive to that. You know, I know the business owner will always pass down the cost to the consumer. And some of the things that are already here from China have already been shipped here based on the original agreement. So that's good. But as it relates to the things that are coming in the future, then it's a chance that they can actually increase the price points on certain things. Well, this is what you got to understand, and you got to have a different perspective. It's opportunities that can come from this, because the goal is for them to basically increase American production, so we're not just so consumer based. See, a lot of stuff comes in, but this is what you got to understand about the reciprocal tariffs, and this is the question that I ask myself. Listen, how is it okay for them to have tariffs on us and we didn't have tariffs on them? Now, I know people consider that to be a trade war, but just think about it from a business standpoint. If you had an event and you had people to come in as vendors and you say, you know what, I'm not going to charge you, but you can sell to my audience. Okay. But then you wanted to go to their event and you wanted to sell to their audience, but they said, nah, you got to pay this $500 fee. How would you feel about that? Would you be okay with it? Or would you say, nah, I let you do it for free and you sold to my audience. Why is it not okay for me to do it for free over here and sell to your audience? See, other countries don't play like that. They don't want you selling to their audience, their country, their business. So they put tariffs on America, and America has just been feeding into it for forever. So now the reciprocal tariff says, okay, you selling to my audience and I've okayed it, but we need to put a tariff on you, because in order for us to be able to sell over there, you know, we have to pay a tariff. So now we're doing a reciprocal tariff for you to be able to sell to us. See, that makes sense when you think about it from that angle. Now, this is not a political perspective of who's right or wrong. This is just simple mathematics of what makes sense. Now, if China's going to be on 104% tariff, that can cause some trickle down. So the question is, where do the opportunities lie? In American-made companies, in things and products that come from America. And then you better get good at finding things that don't have to come from some other area, because if prices do go up, I believe in supply and demand. If prices go up, people would just sag back from buying it. Like when eggs was going up, a lot of people were just sagging back from buying it. It wasn't that the eggs wasn't there. It was plenty of eggs. Sometimes they might drag their feet on bringing out the eggs. The eggs were there. However, sometimes people sag back on buying them because they're like, I'm not paying that for the eggs. Supply and demand. And now you see the eggs trickling down a little bit, and you'll see other things start to trickle down. And either you decide that you don't need that item, because some of the stuff that comes from China, just to be quite frank with you, are things that are not necessarily necessities, but they are just good to haves. And certain things are things that might be somewhat of a necessity, but a lot of times you can do without it if you realize you didn't want to pay that amount. But you just got to take a step back and say, okay, does it make sense? Could this trickle down and cause negative impact? If so, how do I position myself? What do I need to invest in order to see how I can make sure I'm making money off of the fact that the tariffs are in place? And not just from a standpoint of making money, but better positioning your family and better positioning yourself, because a lot of money is lost as well in terms of stock markets and fear and all of those things. But there's a lot of money being made and a lot of opportunity that presents itself. But What do you think about the tariffs from a standpoint of a reciprocal standpoint? Is it okay for them to continue to charge us to sell in their areas while we just allow them to sell to our audience for free? Or does it make sense to have some type of reciprocal tariff so that we level the playing field and let them know that, hey, we know we got a strong consumer base. And I'll conclude with this. America is known for being strong consumer bases. Nobody buys like America. So it's in their best interest to sell to America because they make a lot of money because we consume, even if we don't need it. Strong consumerism just means that you buy stuff even if you don't need it. You just are wired to buy. That's America. And because of it, we want to put a fee on people being able to sell to America. That's pretty much what's being said, what's being done. How this is going to play out, it could get ugly. I'm not sure. I'm just here to give you a different perspective because a lot of times people are just so down or have the one perspective about tariffs because they got one perspective about the individual who's issuing the tariffs. But if you remove your feelings and your emotions and you think about it from a business standpoint, do the tariffs then start to make sense? Or not? You let me know what you think. These are my thoughts, but pay attention to what opportunities exist because tariffs present opportunities. Change presents opportunities. Some people may thrive. Some people may, get hit and caught off guard. But these conversations, asking yourself the right question, leads to the right discoveries and leads to answers. Mr. Smith signing out. Salute.